Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
So today we have with us Professor Apoorvanand, and Professor Apoorvanand teaches at Delhi University, and he teaches Hindi there, and he's also a political commentator, writes extensively for Wire, Scroll. So welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And so just to begin with, just tell us more about your work as a professor and as a political commentator.
I teach Hindi at Delhi University. I write literary criticism and cultural criticism, but I also write on contemporary issues related to education, peace, non-violence, conflict, what we generally know as, and I think wrongly, communalism. I say that now we should start calling it majoritarianism and not communalism, because communalism tempts you to do a kind of balancing act. So these are the issues I'm interested in. Of course, there are other issues as well, but mostly is this resurgence of or emergence of majoritarianism across countries, not only in India, but across countries, and especially in India. It pains you because we had fought against it, and we thought that we were presenting a better model to the world, better model of co-living, where people of different faith, different denominations can live together, respecting each other, giving them dignity, etc.
Right.
So these are the issues which are of my concern.
So recently we have seen that Maoism or supporting a Marxist ideology is seen to be synonymous with seditious thoughts.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
See, if you ask me my approach to Maoism, it's a very critical approach. I don't support Maoism. I don't support Leninism either. Marxism as a philosophy you can engage with, but Leninism has meant a centralized system which suppresses individuals, which suppresses democracy. So there is nothing in Leninism or Maoism you can support. So as an ideology, I am very critical of these strands. And also a potential of violence in these ideologies, because when you suppress individuals, when you try to establish an ideological state, it's bound to turn violent, because people have their own mind, individuals have their own mind. And the definition of an individual is to express herself or himself. And, whereas a centralized ideological state wants you to merge your identity, that larger identity, and you struggle against that. And then it violently suppresses you. And we know from history that this has been the case with Soviet Union and China and Cambodia and other states. So as an ideology, I don't support it. But then Maoism is different for different people.
Right.
It might not mean what it was for Mao. It might be different from what Mao did. So the Maoism that we see in India can be a very different variety than the Maoism which we saw in practice in China. So according to Indian Constitution, you have a right to have your own ideology and also practice it, and also form your own thought and express that. So if you look at it constitutionally, then you cannot deprive people of having a thought which is close to Maoism. The only thing which one must be very clear, that you should not indulge in violent acts. But an idea, no one can deny you the right to believe in that idea. And you can always engage with me. What do you think about that idea, and why I'm critical of that idea, etc.
So many Marxist thinkers say that there's a difference between violence and necessary violence. So what do you think about that?
I don't think there is anything called necessary violence, because if you accept this logic, then it applies to all situations, not only to class struggle, because then it would apply to a position where identity clashes are happening. And I think that my identity is pristine, and it has a privilege over your identity, and therefore my violence is a necessary violence. So this whole idea of necessary violence is bogus. It has been discussed widely, extensively, world over. Uh, you have an extensive discussion on violence in Albert Camus and Walter Benjamin. And in India, where else you turn to other than Gandhi?
Right.
Gandhi said that if you achieve something using violence, what you achieve is bound to be violent.
Right.
And it's a question again of ends and means. So if your means are polluted, if your means are stained with blood, you are not going to achieve something which would be holy.
Right. So talking about violence, your name has come up time and again with relation to Delhi riots. And the police investigated you on August 3, and they also seized your phone. So what exactly happened on that day, and had you anticipated these events?
I won't say that I was shocked, because this was in the air, and we knew from other sources and from the media that there was a theory floating around that the violence that hit Delhi in February, last days of February, was in fact a conspiracy hatched by people who were involved in any manner in the anti-CAA protests.
We have also seen many arrests.
Many
of us,
arrests. So we know that many young activists who were involved actively in these protests were arrested. So we knew the direction where it was going, and also the reluctance of the police, investigative agency, and the state to probe the role of the members of the ruling party. We cannot forget that before the violence, Delhi elections had happened, and taking advantage of the campaign of Delhi elections, a violent hate campaign was launched against the anti-CA protesters. And in that hate campaign, senior members of central cabinet, ranging from the Prime Minister, Home Minister, to other ministers, they participated, and they termed these protesters as enemies of the nation. And the Prime Minister, in a very sinister manner, said that यह संयोग नहीं प्रयोग है. So संयोग and प्रयोग took a very ominous ring. So Prayog became conspiracy, and the Home Minister exhorted his voters to press the button so hard of the EVM that the current reaches Shaheen Bagh, and the women are forced to leave the ground. So it was a very violent metaphor. We know that when you press a button of EVM, no current passes, but the audience could decode it, that it's a call for violence against those who were sitting there for 2 months peacefully, and in fact asking the very Home Minister and Prime Minister to listen to them. So all they were asking was, please Prime Minister, please Home Minister, you are our Prime Minister, you are our Home Minister, and this is our angst, this is our complaint, this is our hurt, and we want you to share this hurt, and we want you to listen to us. But the response they got, and if I use the words of Gandhi, he had said that हमने आपसे ये मांगा और आपने हमें पत्थर दिए. The response they got was this violence.
Right.
Because why I say this? Because we have seen people appearing in Jamia Millia Islamia and on the site of Shaheen Bagh with firearms.
So with regard to that, the WhatsApp group, the Delhi protest support group, right? So you were questioned regarding that, and many other members of the same group were also questioned by the police, right? So and some members from the Pinjra Tod and the Jamia Coordination Committee, I guess they were also a part of that group. Right. So, what was happening on that group, and what exactly led to this? I think at least a dozen people have been questioned till now from that.
More than that.
Yeah,
right?
from that group. So, what was exactly happening on that group?
Well, the name of the group was Delhi Protest Solidarity Group. It was essentially a group meant to express solidarity, the protesters, anti-CA protesters. Now, who these protesters were? These were mostly women, and these were not educated in the language of protest, because they were first-time protesters, homemakers mostly. They came out to express their anguish, and they sat there. But they also sought support of non-Muslims. Okay. So some friends decided to form a loose group to support these protest sites. And what the support was, because they were looking, it was a 24/7 protest. So they were looking for speakers of different kinds, and also performers, singers, painters. And I don't know whether you have been to Shaheen Bagh or not. I went there
I've been there. Yeah.
at least thrice, and I saw very interesting things happening. A small painting corner, then a library coming up there, and they were discussing all kinds of things. For example, budget. For example, right to education, Bhagat Singh, Gandhi, Ambedkar, because it was a 24/7 thing. So they said that please come and talk to us, and professors, teachers from
So,
universities,
the
others.
protesters
It was a support group.
So the protesters approached the members.
I won't say whether they approached them or not. I don't know that.
Okay.
Because I was not the administrator of that group. So I don't know what was the method. But many of us who have been active on many issues, when something like this starts happening in your city, you cannot remain cut off from that. You feel attracted, and you try to understand, and you also try to play a role. But there was a clarity. The clarity was that this was a movement led by these women. So you cannot be in leadership role. This was a movement, I won't say movement, it was a very scattered thing, but it was very organic to the spots from where it emerged. So Shaheen Bagh was Shaheen Bagh, Seelampur was Seelampur, Chandbagh was Chandbagh. So there was no centralized control. Okay. So people felt very curious about the strange nature, because generally we are used to centralized protests.
Right.
So there is a centralized leadership, it issues directives, and then protests happen. But here it was very scattered, very decentralized, very organic.
So a question I have here is, so with regard to when you say it was decentralized, but we also see that some members of the Pinjra Tod group were accused of leading the protests and, influencing the women with their words and bringing them to Jafrabad and, doing the roadblock, which eventually, like, as the police say, which eventually led to the riots. So what do you think about that? Did you know about that? Was it discussed on that group?
I came to know about the discussion later, because I was not following the chats very regularly. It's difficult to keep pace with the chats the way it happens on WhatsApp groups. But I did come to know about the discussion from outside, and I tried to understand it, because I knew Pinjra Tod's activity in the university. They were basically a group concerned with gender justice and freedom for women, young women, on the campus and elsewhere. And I think I assume that this was the reason they they got attracted to these protests because these were women-led protests. And Pinjratod young girls or young women felt that it was their duty as co-citizens to, to be there in their solidarity. But I don't know what was the nature of their relationship because I don't know Pinjratod intimately. I know them very superficially. As a teacher, I have seen their activities on the campus, and they have done some excellent work on the campus for women students, and that has irritated, I would say, people who have patriarchal mindset and males, because they see all these activities unnecessary. Why should girls demand that hostels should remain open till 12 or 1 in the night? What business have girls? So this is the attitude towards Pinjratod. They are seen as disruptors. And I assume that this was the reason Pinjratod went there. But to say, and this again without having any information about the ground, because I was not on the ground. I didn't know any of the organizers of these sites. I have been there only once, Seelampur, Chandbagh, Kadampuri and Khureji, only once. So I don't know what were the nature of organization of those protests. But to say that Pinjratod girls could have persuaded 2,000 women or 1,000 women who were sitting there for 2 months to go and block the road, it's outrageous. It insults those women, and in an effort to create a story of conspiracy, it humiliates those women who were sitting there on their own volition. And so we need to understand what took them to the road, because it could be desperation.
Okay, so you just said that you are not that closely associated to Pinjratod, but a recent Z News report said that a member of Pinjratod, or Gulfisha Fatima, who was very closely associated to Pinjratod, has named you in front of the police that you were a part of those riots and you played a very significant part. And then Off India carried the same report and said that you even praised the students who participated in that riot. So what do you have to say about that?
It's very interesting, and it actually reminds you of Kafka, because it's creating a crime which doesn't exist. It's about me, so I know that it's a lie. What they are saying is a lie. But it's so laughable, and I won't even say laughable, it's bizarre. You cannot even laugh at this, but you can see a sinister mind working behind it, which claims that you can provoke and you can persuade a young Muslim woman to organize burqa-clad women. Look at the words.
Yeah.
Look at the description, because the moment you say burqa-clad, it becomes a conspiracy, as if I am hiding in burqa and planning something. This is the image that goes out to the audience, and this is what this crude description is trying to do. So more than me, it is insulting these women. And it's unfair even to quote it elsewhere, because you are talking about a woman, you are talking actually about two persons. You are quoting a woman who is in custody, police and judicial custody, for last 3 months. You are ascribing something to her, and she is in no position either to confirm or deny it.
It's not admissible by law either.
So it's not admissible by law, and it's again all principles of natural justice and fairness. It goes against journalistic ethics. So even if this is something which has been planted from somewhere, if I were a media concern, I won't take it.
Right.
And secondly, why I felt hurt as a citizen of this country, because I think, who are we? We are individuals. We have no resources to defend ourselves. I have words. All my life I have worked with words. So if you say arsenal, this is my ammunition, this is my arsenal. I don't want to use these words. But beyond this, I have nothing. But if I am pitched against such a powerful thing like a television channel, which has an audience of crores, and an audience which trusts the channel, then what actually are you doing? And this is a question I would like to put, and it should. Some people might see it as a defensive gesture, but this has happened to Omar Khalid. This has
Right.
happened to Kanhaiya.
And he was
because-
also on the group, Umar Khalid, right?
Yes, Omar was on the group.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say something different. Because similar canard was spread about Omar Khalid in 2016 and Kanhaiya. And what happened? It has made Omar vulnerable to attacks from unknown people.
Right.
And in fact, he was shot at by someone who sincerely believed what he was told, that Omar Khalid was an anti-national and he had links with terrorists across the borders, beyond the borders. And a person of the stature of the Home Minister utters it,
Yeah.
knowing fully well that what he is saying is a lie, and media spreads it and makes the life of an individual vulnerable.
So did Z News or Opindia, did they reach out to you?
No, and that's the other thing I want to say, because be it Z or Aaj Tak or some other channels or some other news platforms which thought it fit to publish it. And when I compared, I saw identical words, identical text. So it was very strange that a website or a news concern or media concern like Aaj Tak, which claims that it's a credible, it uses the same script which is used somewhere else.
Right.
Doesn't change words. And they know who I am. It's not that I am a stranger to them. I have been to their platforms. So they know that I am accessible, I am available. I have myself put it in public domain that I was questioned by Delhi police. I have done that. I am not hiding. So they could have approached me. And if you don't do this, then it's not reporting, it's a propaganda. It's a hate campaign. And if you do this, then you become Radio Rwanda. You are actually creating lynch mobs. So it's not only about me or about the person who is being referred to, it's about a culture.
So my last question to you would be, recently your colleague Hani Babu was also arrested, and you wrote an article for Scroll which was titled, "If we don't speak up against his arrest, then we'll lose India forever." So do you think like the academic spaces and the spaces of dissent even within the universities are shrinking? And the second part of this question is that if they are, right, so are institutions and your students supporting you?
See, what actually gave me a lot of solace, I would say, and what was heartening was the support that I got from my students. And the biggest compliment I got from a very young student was that he never asked to think the way he does. He always asked us to think the way we can and the way we should. So, and I firmly believe that education is not indoctrination. I make my standpoint very clear. But if you are a student, I would urge you and I would, in fact, force you to question my standpoint and have your own standpoint. So that was quite heartening. But again, what it does, this kind of allegation, it sows doubts in the minds of even your friends and family members, because it's citing a source which is police, and they think that there might be something in it, and they get scared and they start distancing themselves from you. So it starts isolating you, and that's why I say that the danger is that India will turn into a Stalinist Russia, Soviet Union, where the state turns against you and then turns you into a lonely person. And So this has happened with Binayak Sen, had happened in the first year of his incarceration. When we tried to build a campaign for him, it was very difficult even for his doctor colleagues to believe that he had done nothing.
Right.
It took us 1 year to persuade people that he had done nothing, he had nothing to do with even Maoist organizations. So it becomes an ordeal, and that we must remember. What its implications are for an individual, and media houses should be responsible entities. And I would also say that I don't treat police as my adversary, because if something happens with me, I go to my nearest police station. I expect them to investigate and find out the truth. So if I think that they will do it in a small manner, in such a big thing where violence had happened, I would expect them to deploy their talent, their expertise, their energy to find out the truth. Because violence is a fact, it has happened. But I know that you are moving in a wrong direction. And I won't like you are my police, to move in that direction. Police should not be ideological.
Right. So yeah, so you did not answer that one question. That do you think like
Hani Babu, you
Yeah.
asked about Hani Babu.
Hani Babu and the academic spaces within the universities, right?
So what has happened, I won't talk about the shrinking of academic spaces because it's a very long discussion and it has many aspects to it. But what is happening, and we must underline it, that people who write and speak, there are two kinds of people who are in the business of intellection. So one who write academic papers, circulate in that circuit, and that's fine. There you can do anything. But you'd see a pattern, and this is what a young friend, in fact, told me, and it was very revealing. He said that those who are seen as intellectuals, those who engage in some manner with people, and also what we call vernaculars, Indian languages, they are most vulnerable. So Gauri Lankesh was killed, Govind Pansare was killed, others were attacked. So it's language. And secondly, your engagement with the people in any manner, going beyond strictly academic boundaries. So if you keep yourself confined to this academic thing, you can still go on doing it. Inflection. You will feel a chilling down effect there, but you are safe. But the moment you step out of it, and the moment you start engaging people with your words, because you have no other means, then you become unsafe. And then you are seen as a dangerous enemy, and also someone who is doing unnecessary things. He or she should be busy with her classes, preparing notes and attending seminars, etc.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us today.
Thank you.